last episode of Milkshake Monday Backdrop, which is going to be the last episode for season 8. And just for your knowledge, we have to start by thanking Faith for willingly actually having this idea, but then, going the entire season 8 for asking questions and getting a response that we've been hearing from you all. So we thank you for that. And, you know, it's going to be a good time. It's going to be a good ending. Faith is saying it's going to be short. So anyway, this is when Jesus fills you, and we're just going to do the backup for what this teaching is going to be about. Not teaching, I'm sorry, it's a question and answer, but I just wanted to let you all know that anytime you have questions for me, regardless if we're doing backdrop or not, you can always send me comments or things through contact, and I will try to expound on them. Or if you have questions or ideas for future broadcasts, just let me know, because I do this because I want all of us to grow together. So Faith, what do you got for tonight?
Okay, so your title was "What Does Jesus fill you with?" So you explore the biblical story of Jesus feeding the 5,000. Why exactly did you want to start there in your teaching?
Well, when I thought about the idea of the teaching, I remembered that at the very end of that story of feeding the 5,000, which I kept saying over and over again, it was 5,000 men plus women and children, that they kept saying, all the gospel says they ate to the full. They ate to the full, and they had so much left over, 12 baskets full. I said, wow, we always talk about getting filled up after you eat a big meal, you're full, you're sleepy. I said, imagine if you actually were full of what Christ was offering more than food. So that's how it started out with when I was thinking about putting this together.
You see a lot of examples that people talk about of Jesus and the 5,000. So it's very different interpretations and different teachings of it. So you talked about you talked about by questioning us of why the crowd followed Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think you wanted to start? Why do you think now you would have people in the same, I don't know how I was going to interpret the question, but why exactly would you question that, the crowd today versus the crowd then?
Well, let me talk about today before I go back to him. We've talked many times how some people come to church just to have their hands out and to get social services. The church can help me with my bills, can help me with my groceries, can help me with stuff. And the focus of why they're coming is not really about Christ, His Word. It's about what can I get from the church. Now, receiving their handout. Now, when it came to Christ, yes, people may have been coming to actually have Him teach and preach with the knowledge of the Lord, but they were also saying that they also came because they wanted to see Him do miracles and they wanted to get a good meal. Once He did that feeding of the 5,000, He did a feeding of the 4,000. And so there were always an expectation of there was going to be something spectacular as far as miracles to watch, almost to be entertained at sometimes, because that something wasn't quite fully grounded in their relationship, because at the crucifixion they were willing to go crucify him.
Yeah.
And people, the switch up was crazy. And even at his crucifixion, you didn't see a lot of his followers who had been all those crowds that had been fed and all coming from villages to villages. When he got crucified, there was hardly anybody there.
It's even like an imposter, like I'm gonna be a follower, like an imposter we say now, or like I forgot the word for the syndrome or something.
Imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome. Yeah, that's the word. Where you kind of, I'm a fan of yours. It kind of is like with how it is now. Like, I'm a fan of yours until I see a crowd or I see a bunch of gatherers who are, I want to just, in Jesus' scenario, like crucify him, rather than just a minute ago or the day before you were followers of me. So it just, the switch up, I say that because I think that's the best way to sum up the from followers to haters, or followers to, I don't know what the wording you could say for ones who, I'm trying to think of a right wording for that, but yeah.
Well, imposter syndrome, I think what you described wasn't imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is even Adele and other entertainers say, well, they've attained such level of praise for their gift, and they feel like somebody is better than them, and they don't deserve to get that recognition, as though they're going to be found out for being a fraud. You're kind of saying that people are being fake with following people for the wrong reasons, and then when something falls apart or the crowds go
more
away,
so for them, their benefit. Like I think,
okay.
more so for their benefit. Like you see people who like this person, you're gonna follow it. Like I try to take, was it his word, and like, and it kind of connects with what we're seeing now, of course, worldly. Like even Judas case, like he was following Jesus. They betrayed him for his own incentives. So to me, it's like that is fake. That is a switch up. Whatever you like to call it, like all the words you could think of, from just basically being a follower to now you want to.
But even think about your example about Judas. We often run past the fact that at the end, Judas said, my symbol for how I'm going to signify that this is Jesus, because they weren't quite sure who it was to kiss him. But Christ said to him, friend.
Yeah.
That even at his betrayal by a man that was a disciple that walked with him, that he endowed with powers to do all kinds of miracles, that he would still call him friend, that his love and compassion, even for the deceiver and the person who betrayed him, was still a level of friendship and compassion. Not many of us have that.
Well, it also shows when it says, pray for your enemies.
Yeah.
So, I personally, I do that. I pray for that, and it's crazy enough. But yeah, I mean, I genuinely pray for that, because I recognize that perspective. You kind of pointed it out now. Yeah, friend.
Yeah, friend.
Sorry. And continuing your lesson. Sorry, I don't know what's wrong with my throat. No, for real.
No.
You talked about John the Baptist and the beheading. I've always wondered what that symbolism was of the reason of beheading. First, I've always had a question of, like, during those times, and maybe again you don't know those things, but I always say what they had in the word versus what we see now, two different things, but sometimes similar in the court system. But I thought of the beheading was like more of like it was symbolizing, like, as us, I don't know if I'm gonna get this right, but like beheading, like why out of all things beheading John the Baptist? Was it because of that time frame that they were doing all those beheadings? Because you see a lot of those medieval times, they behead, they lynch, but
lynching probably came later on, more current to our history. But if you think of back then, efficient killing was the guillotine, where they put somebody down and they slapped their head off. And then you would have crushing of the head, or daggers through the heart, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But they were doing efficient killings and mass killings sometimes. But it was the easiest way. How she said she wanted his head on a platter, so he had to be beheaded in order to fulfill that she wanted his head on a platter. There was no, this lady Herodias wanted this man dead so much, she didn't want him to get stabbed or poisoned or something, that where he could possibly recover. She wanted no doubt that he was going to be murdered, and it was going to be done instantly. It wasn't something that the king could have a backup plan to say, okay, let's do this, but then fix him up right after. So
yeah. That's I've always wondered about that, because I've seen, when I was little, we had to watch. Let's just continue. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. John's unique account. You talked about Jesus testing Philip's faith, and the crowd attempting to make Jesus king. Elaborate more on Philip, because I remember we always talked about this on the side about Special Agent Phillips. But why bring up the Philip's faith? Well,
the four Gospels, I looked at all four of them, and when I got to John, it was so evident.
And the four Gospels are Matthew, Mark,
Luke, John. Yeah. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. So when I got to John, it just like shot out the fact that he was talking about more specifics, Luke is supposed to be a physician, so you think he'd be very specific. But it was John that brought out things that weren't even talked about in the way that he did. I mean, all the first three said it was all the disciples that brought to his attention, we got too many people, they need to go out and eat. And then Christ saying to them, but then to get to that last gospel and to hear John say that Christ said something directed to Philip, and the others didn't bring it up, which is strange, because if I'm having a conversation and everybody's listening and I say something to you specifically, and everyone else understood that it was to the crowd of the room, but then only one person said, no, he was just talking to Faith. So it's, the Holy Spirit gives us all these reasons for why he shows distinctions in how he has those people who write these books. But I thought it was great because Philip is in the book of Acts, and when he actually got commanded to go and be at that road and to speak to that eunuch, that there had been a level of growth and faith, that he didn't question it, he just went and did it. And then he was carried in the spirit to another place. And I just said, it's interesting to see his development from the Gospels to the Acts of the Apostles.
Yeah, it's very... I haven't watched... It took me some time to remember, but sometimes I always go to Special Agent Phillips because I really...
That part, too, where you, at the end of that, where John speaks to the fact that the crowd was so mesmerized in what Christ had done in that miracle, but that they wanted to say, oh, he is the prophet. Because the Lord was saying he's the Son of Man. He wasn't saying he was the Son of God. He kept referencing Son of Man, Son of Man. But then they're like, this could be the Messiah. This could be the prophet. We need to make him king so we can get out of the the shackles of the Roman Empire, and this king who could do the miracles of feeding the 5,000, miracles of all the sickness and disease he was healing, he could miraculously get us out of this bondage. So,
and that brings me to the crowd. You talked about people, like the people following Jesus, not only for the teaching but to witness miracles. Touch on that more so, because you see a lot of times. You saw the 5,000. You saw him heal the paralyzed, and the leopard. I mean, not leopard.
They're called lepers.
Yeah. Okay.
Skin disease.
Skin disease. I didn't know if that was the right word. But you see healing miracles, and I always see teachings always talk about miracles of But I value the crowd per se. Even the crowd seeing what Jesus had done, and then switching up to when he had crucified. It just makes me amazed, but also in a vast, you could see all these things. You could see all these miracles happen that Jesus has done, his teachings, so forth, so have you. And yet, at the end of it, you're at the end, one yelling, crucify to him. But I wanted to say, how do you value the crowd now to what it, how is it similar to back then to as it is today? Because I feel like crowd does play a part when we not only, I think, are followers of Jesus, but also just tells us how we should go forward. Because I don't value crowds anymore of I need to follow per se.
Well, I think of it when I applied to something to the Bible where it talks about the seeds. There's a lot of seed thrown out, and he had crowds that heard the word of God and the knowledge of God explained about the kingdom. Mm-hmm. But it fell on different ground. Mm-hmm. And some was not good ground. A lot of it wasn't good ground, but there were people who heard and applied it for the rest of their lives, and they grew and developed and produced the fruit of that lasting impact to the fact that we have the Bible and we know about the Word of God. Yeah. But there was a lot of seed that fell on thorny ground. Mm-hmm. The cares of this world, the influences of what was happening, that were shallow, all those different things were happening. So even today, I use this expression 80-20 rule, but many congregations are large congregations in numbers, but very few in disciples that are learners of the Lord who are committed. There are people who come to worship, but they're just checking a box. They're coming because they want to say they went to church. They want to say, okay, I did what I was supposed to do, but they're really not sincere in the sense of not me judging, but Christ saying, I know that you came there to grow and to get better and to more committed, and you want to apply what you're learning. Everybody's not like that every Sunday. And there's a lot of people that families, husbands, wives, kids that are coming into that sanctuary, different places all around the world where they're going for to see what's the song's going to be about. What's he going to talk about today? But they're not going in there with an ear to hear.
Yeah. Yeah, that is very true. That is very true. That is very true. I could get into deep, but we talked about that many episodes, like every episode. Sorry. Oh my god, I don't know what's happening.
It's freezing. That's why I was like, well, you have to have the studio cold because of the lightings, but it is freezing.
Yeah. I like to touch on. I've heard this about the feeding of the 5,000. It's more or less of food. It's more of spirit. When you talked about it, you said spirit filling is beyond physical food. You said it's more of healing, hope, leadership, salvation. But what is that fulfilling addressing more so when you say it's not based on physical food, it's based on spirit? Is that on, elaborate on that more?
I would give you the example of the fruit of the Spirit, that the characteristics of the Lord Jesus Christ and what we see in the fruit of the Spirit are some of the very things that you see when he teaches. He taught then, he's teaching us now, that he's giving us eternal gifts of what we can have that will be useful and needed even in eternity with him. The things about food is temporary. You eat something, within the week it's gone. It's out, pooped it out, peed it out, whatever. So that's not the gist of the story. I believe that when he talked about the sheep being like they had no shepherd, that we have a lot of people even today that are following after themselves or false gods or false treasures.
Conforming to the
yeah, they're not understanding the deeper things of what is this life about? Why are we here is the big question that a lot of people still ask.
What is life? Yeah.
What is life? Who is God? Is he real? But those kind of questions, I believe, if you really look at the Word of God and the teachings of the Gospels, or even the feeding of the 5,000, he's sharing things that are beyond 2 fish and 5 loaves. But I think we're so shallow. We're so fast and, I need something easy to understand. Well, everything that's important is not easy.
Yeah.
And you have to invest your own time and attention, focus, and priorities on some things that are not simple. That's why this culture, younger generation all the way to older, we are so shallow. And I've used that expression twice, but we don't want to sit on the porch to hear our oral histories. We don't want to take the time to read the books and that we have, whether it's the Bible or books about our history. We would rather just have simple things. Oh, let me hear the music. Oh, let me watch the TV. Let me do the fast and easy things. But God he's not like a microwave. He's not gonna just say, okay, instantly you're gonna know everything about me. He's gonna say it takes a lifetime, and even in a lifetime of study and learning of him, there's still centuries and millennials of more that we're learning when we go to heaven and hear.
I think that too, like you played a part. Like I think too, people want fast answers, or they want. I just heard some. I'm gonna say foolishness. Because I heard this person was saying about the book, and it took me a long time. I was like, what are they talking about? And they were referring to the Bible, and I thought to myself, then I it could be church hurt for sure, but I feel like for me personally, I just lost my thought. I hate that.
You heard somebody talking about the book.
No, yeah, I heard someone talking about the book, but for me, that's the reason for the translations. Like, it took me a moment when I first started, entering into wanting to know more about Christ and have my own personal Bible. Like, it took me time to, like, what are they talking about? Especially I had a New King James Version, which was hard to interpret, but the reason for translations, I'm now in the Living Bible. I now read other translations to have a better interpretation. Like, you're not going to get it right and have all the knowledge in the world of like, oh, I read the Bible from top to, I know everything now. Like, that's not how it works. But to me, I do feel I've heard shallow lately too, but I do think in this special time, because I'm going fine now. And I do think the word is always current. It always leads back to the word of any situation. I've always told mom and dad this, and anybody this, because nothing really surprises me anything, because God prepared us in His word. And I think once we recognize that, and once we see that, instead of not of saying, "Oh, this hasn't happened," it has. Um, but I do think shallow is the right word, but I also think laziness and just not making a priority of His word. Like, I think that's the best I can say. And even when you ended every episode about laborers, I do think, hopefully, Lord willing, with these, and, you know, I think just being a witness, even, I don't know why it struck a nerve, not struck a nerve, well, it struck a nerve, that there are at least one person we know who is of faith, but doesn't get out of the house. I personally, I always say I'm an introvert. Mom always says I'm an introvert. A lot of people say I'm shy, I'm quiet. I'm slowly trying to get out of that shell. I do have that because I'm not an energizer bunny. I'm more of like, I need my battery charged so I can give 100%. And even if I can't get it charged, at least let me recuperate in, like, for at least 5 to 10 minutes, and then I'll come back with better. That's why before I started, I had to, like, really pray over, because I didn't. When I woke up versus how I am now, two different people.
Well, let me tell you about this Energizer Bunny. There are times where I do want to be reserved and introverted. When I was away this weekend, I was going.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't, even though I do these teachings, I'm not a pastor or a minister,
Mm-hmm.
but I was surprised because I was chilling out with I'm going to tell you, I had a wine cooler. I was at an event, and all of a sudden they said, "Could you come and pray over the food?" And I was in the back, just chilling with the people. And I was like, okay, I just did it, but I was thinking I was expecting somebody else
Else,
to do
yeah.
it. But it's like, okay, so even the Energizer Bunny sometimes wants to just chill out, but you have to be ready no matter what. And I don't. And
Exactly.
I'll tell you all this. I remember years ago. I'm not a legalist. And legalist means that all these. Oh, you can't wear shorts, or you can't have a wine cooler, and you're well over 21 years old. You can't this. You can't. I was like, no, we are people, and God gives us forgiveness. And I don't ever put ourselves in this. Oh, we're perfect. I don't do that. But
And that's a key thing too. I told mom, switching outside of her episode, like, I am I am it I feel like I would always say, "Oh, I forgive this person, I forgive this person." And I
mm,
now am like taking it all in. Like, I kind of brush it off, but, like, I really am forgiving of people who have done wrong, in a sense, because I really got convicted, because by the Lord, by saying, like, I forgive you with a lot of the stuff you've done, Faith, and you're telling me you can't forgive these people who it's like, that's not Christ-like. That's not a person who I want to, have witness to the people who are unbelievers. So it felt convicted. Sometimes I like to hear from mom. Like, sometimes with things she says, I listen for sure. And sometimes I'm like, oh, Lord, I know you brought her in my life because you wanted to do that, and so forth. But yeah, I value what you said when it comes to that. But forgiveness is very key in that. But yeah, I know within this season, eight.
this is the last episode for season 8 for Milkshake Monday Backdrop.
Yeah, it's been a ride. It's been a ride.
I learned more about you in Milkshake Monday Backdrop because you're talking and you're explaining things. I get to hear how you translate or interpret things, the
Hmm.
questions, the things that are happening on in work or friendships, and I just don't hear. We talk all the time about a lot of stuff, but
We
I
do.
don't. We don't talk about.
We don't really sit down, have no phones in our. Not saying that I talk with my mom on my phone, like
Yeah,
like
but
this, but we sit down in the quiet no dogs and actually like listen to one another.
Yeah, and I have to listen to you to understand what the question is, and that's the thing about listening. Even in relationships, people are so ready to have their answers, but they don't listen. What did the person actually ask you, and
Yeah.
did you take the time to answer what they ask and follow
Or
up?
actually
Did I
register what
yeah,
they said.
did register what they said, but then did you address their question?
Yeah.
And that's the thing about back and forth discussion. I think you're my daughter, but you're a great roommate. I was just thinking about that today. I said, when you have your husband one day, if the Lord's will, I said, you are a great, because you said, use the word the other day when we were getting the groceries, you said thoughtful. I was like, okay, how can I be better thoughtful, in helping with the groceries and the things you've said. So that was really interesting. But I have appreciated the time on Milkshake Monday Backdrop. It's just been informative for me as much as it's been informative to Faith. It helps me to figure out, because of Backdrop, I have tried to reshape and tell you some of the things I'm going to teach you, then teach you, and then come back and kind of reiterate some of it. So I've tried to make it clearer as best I can. And I'm not saying I'm going to make the episodes for Milkshake Monday shorter. It's going to be as the Lord leads, but I do want to make sure that I make it at a time frame that people can absorb it and slow it down.
I think too, you shouldn't. I always say this to her. I don't think you can get feedback from people,
Right?
Yes, but if the Lord puts it on your heart to do something, I think you should go before man, and I think too, adjusting your time frame versus like we could say like her daughter could say something, but you don't always have to take in what we say. Because I think if a person could watch a football game for an hour, a person could, watch them for 30 to 45 minutes. Now, I will say, when we first started this, not Backdrop, but Milkshake Monday, Mom was saying 15 minutes, then it turned to 35, then it turned to 40. And I wasn't upset with the time frame. I was upset with, I said, from the beginning, I said, Mom, be real, because you cannot not talk for, I mean, you can talk more than 15 minutes, and you are going to adjust the time. And I just wish you would have been real with me from the beginning.
Well, I thought it would, because first of all, I had never gone in front of a camera. Dad was the preacher teacher. I would do Sunday schools or vacation Bible schools, but I had not come. And I thought it was the beginning of me really doing a lot with Facebook. And I was saying, I don't know what people will listen to or not listen to. And it made me think of, there are times that I have conversations, and if somebody asks me questions about a topic of the Bible, I try to make sure I've covered it enough that they have some understanding, or at least a place to go and look in the Bible.
Yeah.
And so, if nothing else, I sometimes go back to some of the first episodes, and
yeah, her and my sister are the only people who
right, because we learn from our own selves and how we taught, but
I analyze it while I'm talking.
But you still have to go back, because I will say, sometimes I'll go back and say, I said the wrong name for that, or I meant to say this, and it just tells me, slow down, make sure that you're saying things accurately, where none of us are perfect, no matter whatever's going on.
But I think with season 8, or will in next season, it will be like a different type of walkthrough, or I have like maybe like a new idea of way.
Oh, so something that's not back. See, she has great ideas, you guys. She does, because this was your idea. I thought it was a great idea.
It was an idea.
But it just didn't work out like you expected. You thought the people would ask questions. We
first were like, I'm going to do one episode until you get another person. Because, again, I'm not a camera. I'm more behind the camera.
But they love you because of your frankness of asking the questions you have. Sometimes I was wondering, I said, Faith, is that your question? You did a good old AI on the thing. Did you use any AI?
I have.
I know, because I was like, what is that question
because sometimes, like, even you've seen probably other episodes, I don't really have my words together. Maybe that's because I have reading comprehension and writing issues till this day. Because I would have had, Mom gets on me about like. So a lot of the questions I have that I create myself and just put on Copilot, it reduces the likes and just creates it into a question.
Oh, okay. So
it's really good that
I'm liking that Copilot too. I've really never used it.
Or it's really Google Gemini. Well,
either
both
one.
Of them,
I was like, now people are using it, and I was like,
I only use it for writing questions per se. I don't use it for like content. I'm not lazy like that. I just like if I just don't have the time to like put it in a professional way, because I really do, like I always say this, ever since dad died, like dad left me with Albany and mom, and that's a huge thing. And they're both like now have masters, but they're so writing like particular, so it's just like I know I'm not the only one. I know this is aside from it, but like you can have a conversation, right? And you're saying like your story and stuff like that, and they'll interrupt. And
We don't do that.
not interrupt. Okay, they'll finish it.
They'll
like
let you finish.
I'll let them finish, and you'll be like, oh, it was there, not there. And I'm like, did you even listen to anything? Goes back to like, are you in arguments like, are you really listening to what I said? Like, why wait until the end? Like, correct, like, that like burns my buttons so much. But I learned to like, cause I love them, but like endure that, like Jesus endures us. But I'm just like, that is something that I just, oh my gosh, that's a tick for me. Now here she comes with justification. It's okay. That's part of
when
you.
you are in high school and college and starting out in your career, you want to make sure that you're giving the people you love and even strangers feedback to help them
For sure.
be better and stronger.
For sure.
And I would not, like, I won't put the person's name out there, but I know that they are very self-conscious that they don't think they speak well and don't know a lot of vocabulary. So I will let them tell a story, and then we're doing it in private. I don't do it in public.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'll say, you're saying this word, but this is how that word is pronounced.
Yeah.
And they're like, and then I'll give them a way to sound it out. And they appreciate that, because a lot of people will just let them keep saying it wrong.
Yeah, for sure.
It's just like having something on your mouth. I meet strangers and there's something about them.
I definitely get that. Like, I definitely, I'm okay with correction. But like, for me, like the word ain't. For the longest time, mom, and I'll be like, ain't's not a like word. Like, I reduced my vocabulary from not using ain't.
I'm glad, because I would not want you to go into your professional environment.
I wouldn't use that.
Ain't.
Like, I wouldn't. Well, I wouldn't.
Times to use it in play and having, anyway, we're off
Yeah,
topic.
off topic.
But my point of it is, there's slang, and I even in the book I said you all use two languages. The one when you're relaxed with your friends, and there's one when you go into work.
But I'm relaxed. I could be relaxed. Can I be relaxed at home? Like you are in a sense home. So it's like yeah. But yeah, so hopefully, Lord willing, season 9 be a different concept in a sense.
Yeah, because we started season 9 on September the 1st, Labor Day. It was a good one. I mean, it was one that was a lot of information. Now, I got to talk to you about Fast and Hard. Can you hold one for me, please? A couple things have happened.
She got serious.
I'm always serious, but yeah.
Maybe that's something you gotta do.
Matthew Tyner and Linda Tyner got married on August the 30th.
Yeah.
And I took the advantage, because that Friday before the marriage, I said, let me bring a handful of books and have all three, because the three of us, Michael does not live anywhere close to Maryland or Virginia. So we had not ever met before. I have been, for the 2.5 years, working virtually with Michael. We see each other twice a week or so, but we had never met. So that was the first time that we had the opportunity to have all three signatures. So what these books, I have 5. One of them I'm keeping myself. Matt and Michael didn't think of this, but this one says, Be the Change, from Matthew Tyner. And then on the second page, it has my signature, Matt's signature, and Michael's signature. There are only 5 books right now in the world that have this. Now, I've got to think, no, this is not going to go for regular price. This is what Michael and we were saying. This is a gold limited edition collection, because there's not going to be, you'll get Matt's signature. You may get a Matt and Anita's signature because we're more local, but there's no 3 signatures plus an extra one with Matt saying something. So we're going to be doing some things for the film. And even in the investor's deck, it says if you become an investor, whether it's for development or production, there are things when we actually have the premiere of the movie, when the movie's going out, that you'll have some special things. So I'm not sure if I'm going to hold these gold collections, or, hey, if you want a $100,000 donation, you can get a gold limited edition. But we're praying that within the next 60 days, we're going to have the $500,000 development funds for the movie. And Separate and distinct, a leap of faith, a life filled with questionable choices. I don't know if you could see over our shoulder, but for the entire time for this set, we have had the fast and hard and the it's hard to see, but the fast and hard and the A Leap of Faith, both the hardcover and the soft cover behind us. But
and I think it's very like not just because I know them both, Lord. I do think both of these books are very impactful in different ways, and it's not both of them are not gender specific, if that's the word. I think both of them really, if to me, if I was a teacher, I would want my students, especially in high school, really middle school, no, really elementary, fifth, fourth, fifth grade, I would have at least them read this first, and then when they get to high school, they can read this. Because I think so much is being exposed when parents are not there, and I think we're losing so much of reading fundamentals. And I think reading these books is very plain, very simple, and like not having complicated onomatopoeia type of words. It's just straightforward to the point, and it's real truth in these books. Honestly, I'm not speaking because I know them both, and Lord knows, this one, my God, testimony.
let me tell you something. A Friday for the like it was like a little get together, and then Saturday. So I'm gonna give you the perspective of a 70-year-old man, a 21-year-old young girl from college, and a 30 something coach. All of them were. They said it was the fastest read that they'd ever done for a book. The one on Friday, the 70-year-old man said he cried. And even as he was thinking about one of the passages, he started crying at the table. I was just floored to have somebody that was touched that much. The young girl said, and her boyfriend was sitting right there, she said, I look over and she'd be crying. She said, and she'd be reading something and she'd be laughing, and all of a sudden she'd start crying.
It's very
And
touching.
the coach told me that he was coming back from the West Coast to the East Coast and read the book. And he said, you're the Anita of this book that I won't say. He said saved Matt. And I said saved Matt. I said no, I helped him. I said Lord saved him, but but he was saying, but he was saying this book just touched him. And I just want to tell you that we're changing to be our own publishers. We self-publish, but we were allowing Book Baby to be the publisher online for the social media platforms. I should say social media like Amazon.
No longer.
No, in the last 2 weeks, you're going to see that for a while it's going to be unavailable. You have to either go to tinereffect.org or fordosproduction.org because we're selling our own books. But then we're going to bring them up again on all those different resellers, and we're going to have our relationships directly as the authors ourselves to get things done quicker and faster.
They're going.
They are. So I'm going tomorrow to a charity event, and they just sent me 2 messages. We need you to bring plenty of books because people want to buy your books, so bring books. So I'm going to do, I'm going to be a part of a golf outing, so I got to be I'm just trying to have some confidence and go there and play golf, but then now I think I got to look a little bit decent to sell books. Yeah, because
when Mom be doing golf,
I look like I have my hair washed because I just sweat. It's like, okay, I have to find something to look like I'm a little decent if I got to sign some books. But I just want to say thank you all for joining us for Milkshake Monday Backdrop. If the Lord wills, we'll do it again for another season.
Ponytail Chronicles is coming soon.
But Ponytail Chronicles is coming this fall. Tourists traveling through. We're going to be going to South Africa in December. I'm going to look to see if Cape Town, South Africa, if there's a church that I can actually do my Milkshake Monday on that December the 8th, I believe is that Monday. But anyway, I just wanted to say thank you. We love you, and it's been a pleasure. God bless you. I love you. Deuces. Peace out. Deuces.